This is day 1381. And of course, we had absolutely breaking news yesterday, double breaking news yesterday. And today is 1381 days since Richard was murdered. Um, yeah, let's just call it that. So, every day we're getting more and more confirmation of our prime suspects being involved in the murder of our son, Richard Halliday. And those prime suspects, of course, are Dallas Hart, his mother, Leilani Hart, and Leilani Hart's boyfriend, the dirty CID agent, Tavita Nusa, that lost his badge and was removed. So let's get into this and these unscheduled departures. This is, see if I'm on here. I don't see it. See if I can reload it. Okay, there I am. Now I can see. So, happy Rogation Sunday. If you are a practicing Christian that's liturgical, uh, today is Rogation Sunday, and it's you know really one of my favorite times in the season because um, it just goes back to, I guess, my family history and thinking about the planting season. Um, it's not a sure bet when you plant that things are going to go well. It's very, very hard to grow food, and it's difficult to get justice, and it's difficult to build buildings. It's difficult to make things. Not everyone can sit down at a sewing machine and, sew up a beautiful shirt or dress, or not everybody can pick up a piece of wood and carve out, a beautiful lentil for a door. Um, Not everyone can build these beautiful cathedrals. We still don't know how they're built. We still don't know how they're built. We still don't know how a pyramid is built. And because how do you get those stones way up there, right? How do you do it? How do you do it? And the weight of it and the level of it. Um, it's just really, really amazing. And they just last and last and last. Um, and so here, Rogation Sundays, the Rogation, normally they last about 3 days. Um, it's really a time to think about that. It's a time to think about when you're working, that your work will produce something fruitful. And, in Richard's case, we have worked very, very hard. And, the results are very, very hard to stomach, to stomach. You have to be very, very faithful to understand that you might not absolutely see what's going on, understand what's going on, um, but that God is working in His timing, and He is always righteous. His judgments are always just, and it's kind of like planting. I think a good analogy is planting rice. You have to take the rice that is your food, right? Your food. You have these beautiful rice kernels, and you have to throw them in moving water. I don't know if people know that, but when you plant rice, the water has to be moving. It can't be stagnant water. It has to be moving water. And so here you are throwing your rice in this moving water, trusting that it is going to take root and grow and produce, a hundredfold, a thousandfold, whatever. um, and get a great yield and give you even more food than what you need, so you can share it, sell it, whatever. So it's really an act of faith to throw your food into some rushing water, not rushing, but moving water, streaming water. And, Rogation Sunday is a time to, think about your faith in that God will produce fruit if you are faithful to do the work. And I've always told our children, to pray is to work is to pray. And so through these years of hearing absolute insane and seeing insane dialogue, narratives, reactions, in the midst of the insane COVID lockdown, which, we know that the COVID mandates are absolutely insane. The whole thing, just so destructive to the work of the people, the small business owners, and I've said it from the day one, even when people were still hypnotized with those squirrely things in their eyes. I was saying this is crimes against humanity, and I was saying it loud, crimes against humanity. And I remember talking to Richard on the phone and saying, this is way, way overboard. Just, there's some kind of maybe toxin or whatever. So I sent him a package of vitamins and, um, just drink a lot, take vitamins, and we can get through this um, until we know what's going on, because we knew what they were telling us was misleading and not right. So in the midst of all of that, Richard went missing. Richard was murdered. And obviously, we were being misled, and Richard was being retaliated against, and also defamation was going on. They were trying to smear him every which way. And, it was just, they couldn't even, it was so obvious, because what they were saying was so over the top, so over the top, just not even possible. Even if you reached far, it was not possible. And so, um, you know, so we decided, and they put you in a very bad situation, because we needed to talk to the first sergeants to tell us the truth. They have an obligation to care for our son. They're soldiers, and to speak with us and tell us. And, so we wanted to give them the opportunity to tell us. What they were telling us was, well, that was Jay Paulin. What he was telling us, we know now, was a cover up. And he's a primary suspect in the murder of our son. Okay. I just want everyone to know that Richard's first sergeant, his his former first sergeant, is absolutely a prime suspect in the murder of our son. And then, of course, First Sergeant Ruggiero, who, has refused to speak with us. That's on record. And that is so abnormal. A first sergeant refusing to speak to the family of, what they were like, oh, Richard walked away, or, anything else, any other possibility than murder, they would absolutely not respond the way they were. Every response, the crying of Captain Yoshida, the shaking like a leaf on a windy fall day, Command Sergeant Major Jakovitz, who's absolutely criminal, y'all. Absolutely criminal. the criminal violations that he has committed against our volunteer sons and daughters is just absolutely, he needs to be held accountable. Because they were pimping girls, y'all. They were pimping girls in the barracks to our soldiers. That is just, and Richard, we have him on video, um, corroborating that. So he really is up to no good. And yeah, I wonder if did he get a plea deal? Um, or was that yeah, I'm trying to figure out the huge difference. Let me see. I was writing some notes between the difference between a plea deal and, yeah, maybe it's immunity. Maybe it's immunity. Yeah. Um, yeah. Did he get immunity? Because then he would have to, offer some information. I don't know. I don't know. And so last night, um, we received intelligence. We received information, very good information from very good source, and our records, our crumbs, right? Our little crumbs that have gathered up into bread, um, to, really substance, um, show that absolutely we believe that this intelligence is right, that immunity agreements and plea deals were attempted, and I'll say attempted, because they are not valid. They are absolutely not valid. That's the good news. And, even if they're federal, because it was all done in fraud, because all this is just one big violation after the other, those plea deals, even if they're federal, like last night, I was like, well, if they're federal, we still have a state capital criminal murder case, right? But from what I'm hearing, uh, and researching, that this, the prosecutor has to issue those agreements, and it's with all the fraud around it. Oh, who did the agreements? Was it Jaime Esparza? Was it um I know it wasn't Yvonne Rosales, because they got rid of her for looking into the case. Um, or was it Bill Hicks, Um, or was it, it's just, we'll find out. We'll find out, because with this notice of death, we can absolutely, that has granted us more rights to help Richards, close down everything for him, because this was an admission that he was murdered. Okay. Now, are you going to get that in the news? They have admitted that, well, maybe sooner or later, but because of all the evidence, because of all that's going on, this is absolutely an admission that Richard was murdered. And with the attempts for the agreements, that is an admission that Richard was murdered on Fort Bliss. This is an admission that he was murdered, right? Because why would you need to have plea deals and immunity deals if if everything was, like, oh, we did everything we possibly could, says the CID. No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I think you've been criminal. I think you've been very, very criminal. And we know for sure that Tavita Newsett was very, very criminal. And Richard is our son, and we want accountability, and we want his body. We want his body. And they are having a very hard time. We're keeping track of the courts there in El Paso, and they're having a very, very hard time with any kind of capital case. They have to plea it out. It's kind of like with Patrick Crucius's case in the federal court. That was a plea deal, um, which, it's starting to all click here. It's starting to click. It might take me a little bit because, um, there's so many facets to this, but absolutely, Felix Valenzuela and Joe Spencer and the other ones, they have done Patrick Crucius so dirty. They're supposed to be defense lawyers, and you know, they absolutely knew. You cannot serve in El Paso for this long as a defense attorney or a prosecuting attorney and not know that the chief medical examiner is illegal. Is illegal. Big time illegal. Number one, he's not even an American citizen. Then number two, he violated his visa. He's illegal. $438,000 a year. Sweet deal for an illegal, right? And because this has now been reported, and I'm not just telling you, we have been reporting this, officially reporting this, and you know, any kind of communication we've had with that office is explained by that, right? Because of these autopsy report numbers that we would like explained, and the absolute fraud that's going on at the chief medical examiner's office there in El Paso is beyond evil. Beyond evil. What are they doing with these bodies? What are they doing with the corpses? We know that Richard's corpse was not treated honorably. Okay? That people that are involved in this case, there are two common denominators. One is the funeral mortuary affairs business, and two, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints connection. Okay? So, what are they doing with these bodies? And for so long, for so many years, and no wonder you can't get a capital case. And no wonder, even with Patrick Crucius, you could not get a trial because they had to plea deal it out, because they didn't want the court to happen, for people to watch it occur in the court, because then we would get to look at the evidence, that we would get to hear from the illegal chief medical examiner, right? And his testimony on 23 victims of the Walmart mass shooting. And they didn't do that. They just said that he plead to 1,000 years in prison instead of the death penalty, right? And still, for 5 years, he's been sitting across the courthouse in solitary confinement. Not, even though he's been sentenced to serve at the Albatross of the Rockies, right? He's supposed to go to Colorado, to the worst of the worst of the worst, and of course, get some mental health help, because he has a severe mental health condition. Amongst several things, he has autism. And so, but he's been sitting for 5 years right across the street from the El Paso courthouse in isolation, awaiting the state case. And nobody has brought anything forward, no scheduling at all, no scheduling even of a mental health evaluation for him. And this violates his rights. So, and what am I saying? That I have pity on him or anything? Look, I have pity on the people of El Paso that we have such evil uh, attorneys and no just courts that we can't get our rights recognized for a speedy trial and get this over with. That's what I have pity on. He needs to be brought to trial speedily. That's part of our law. And yet he's just sitting in there sucking up taxpayers' money. It's very expensive to house these criminals, and he's just sucking up the money. And then it is inhumane. That's why we have the speedy trial. That's why we have the mental health evaluation. And we spend a lot of money on these teams to do these mental health evaluations. Why hasn't it been done? And we can ship him off to the albatross of the Rockies. But I'm telling you that there's been so much mismanagement in the case for Patrick Crucius, for the Walmart mass shooting, that the victims aren't going to get justice. He's gonna walk. At the end of the day, he's gonna walk because we have an illegal medical examiner, because his rights have been violated. And not only do we have the inhumane action, like just because he participated, because he didn't do the whole thing himself. Okay, there's multiple. We have murderers walking around. That's why we also need the court hearing, because he might let loose, being mentally unstable, having a mental health condition. Even at the one time that he showed up, he was like, no, 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 I'm not racist. They won't let him speak for himself. Let's hear it, because let me tell you what, with lawyers like Felix Valenzuela and Joe Spencer, who needs enemies? Who needs enemies? My goodness. And just think how much money they're sucking up from the El Paso people, from the Texas taxpayers, for this case that they are just so bad at. They are so bad. So they need to pay restitution. They need to give us back our money, right? They need to give Texas back their money. They need to give El Paso taxpayers back their money, especially with all this inflation going on, especially with all these high property taxes. How dare they? How dare they? They are just taking advantage of the whole system, and it's criminal. It really is criminal. And they plea dealed him out. And they do not tell me that they don't know that he could have just walked away, not go to the albatross of the Rockies. He could have walked, pull one of those, if the glove doesn't fit, you must acquit. With defense lawyers like this, who needs enemies? Right? They plea dealed him out when he absolutely has his rights violated, and they could have let him walk. I know the El Paso people and the victims' families would have been very angry, but they are his defense lawyers. So let me tell you, if you need defending, do not pick Joe Spencer or Felix Valenzuela or those other two, and whatever you do, do not pick Justin Underwood, right? Wow. Wow. And the other thing that we received, I think it was like a year ago, we received information about Penny Hamilton, a judge. She's now retired, being involved in Richard's case. Now, why would a judge be involved with Richard's case? Because Richard was murdered. And absolutely, there was some deals going on and agreements going on. But you know what? Those are all invalid because they did it unlawfully. It seems like the justice system there in El Paso is acting unlawfully in so many ways. In so many ways. And not only did we hear about Penny Hamilton having a hand in Richard's case, and then she retired, right? And here we are, she knew we were talking about it. But then we wrote Judge Robert Lee Shook, who's a colonel there on Fort Bliss, for the proceedings, the legal proceedings that were going on in Fort Bliss. He's open records on our son's case. And he hightailed it out there. He was in the middle of building this nice little custom home, or this nice little home on a nice piece of property. And he just hightailed it out of there. So, there is loads of evidence. And we have more, that there were, illegal, unlawful immunity agreements and plea deals that were going on behind our back, while we are, trying daily and daily and daily to get answers about our son. And now we have this notice of death, and then people are going, the suspects have lost support, and I'm going to be in trouble. If I don't speak up. I'm going to get caught in this mess if I don't speak up. And so that's why you're seeing some of this breaking news going on, because this is not a game. This is called a capital murder case, and it's in Texas. And capital murder cases in Texas include the death penalty. This is not a game. And so with this information, with these immunity agreements and plea deals, and absolutely by that, and let me get it clear, the information that came in is that there were agreements made with people that, let's just say, in regards to Richard's murder. Okay, in regards to Richard's murder. And so if anyone has questions like, oh, was he murdered? Yes, he was murdered. He was murdered. He was a whistleblower. And his whistleblowing stood up to, he died for speaking up against this trafficking. And of course, those trafficking were involved also in the orchestration and the very evil. I'm thinking it was really intelligence that put this together to interfere with the election, because we all know that 6 ways to Sunday, they have a way to get back to you, right? They have a way to get back at you. And, the orchestration of a mass shooting at a Walmart in El Paso, and then, put all this narrative around it that's BS. The whole narrative, once you look a little close at the Walmart mass shooting, you absolutely know it was so BS. Just take a picture. Just Look at the pictures of the victims. You got a German in there. Um, you know, and then when you start connecting all the dots, like with Jesus Melendez, right, with David Johnson and Rosa Maria Valdez Garcia and her family, with Alexander Hoffman, and more and more, you're like, okay, this was not this lone this was not a lone shooting, just, a hate crime. This was not a hate crime. This was a hate crime, but not what they say. This was interference with the election, and I believe against Donald Trump. And then they, thought, okay, we'll kill two birds with one stone and try to tax the people with it, try to make the people so fearful. And then thereafter, a bond was passed, making the people weaker in times like this when they don't know what they're doing in the Treasury Department, they don't know what they're doing in our government, and we have this inflation. And um, inflation is not normal, y'all. It should never be part of life. And if you take some time out, I recommend you looking at the chart of inflation of the United States prior to Nixon taking us off the gold standard. There was virtually no inflation. Year after year, no inflation, because our money was bound to gold, the value of gold. And if you look at, how I learned about this is, as a teacher and a homeschool mom, I really love these old antique school books. And in the antique school books, they never allow for inflation. When it comes to money exchanges from different countries, for all in their math problems and everything, they never allow for inflation. And today we can't even do simple calculations because the problem of the value of the monies, right? The different currencies. And you always have to figure for inflation. And yet you don't really know what the exact inflation is. So you can never get a proper calculation. But in these old school books, they never even thought about it because they didn't have it. And if you look at the charts, inflation started when they took our dollar off of the gold standard, which means you couldn't go to the window and say, here's a dollar, give me my silver or my gold. Because the dollar bill was a receipt for gold and silver. And that ended with Nixon. Nixon, they got into some debt and they were fudging, and France wanted to cash in on their dollars, and Nixon had to close the window because that would have emptied out our gold reserves, and that's been emptied out anyway. But this is why they want to go to digital and whatever. I don't know. They love inflation, these big fish, because it is a hidden tax. It's absolutely a hidden tax. And why am I telling you this? Because the fraud is there. And thanks be to God, when they were trying to manipulate us for, really a good more than a year, really, I would say for a good 2 years, and they're still trying to manipulate. But, it smelled bad. It smelled bad. We knew that they were committing fraud, and they were committing even more, just major crimes. And so just collecting all the information and presenting it every day here, and people sharing it. Um, and so many letters behind the scenes, y'all. So many letters. I can't even tell you. We're getting so good at writing letters. We have like a system here of writing letters. Um, and check it off, check off. Oh, did we write them? Check it off. Oh, did we write them? Check it off. Okay. Um, yeah. We received huge blessing, the notice of death. Now, is that the blessing that, that I wanted really at the beginning to hear? No, I wanted my son. But I'm so glad we're moving forward with this, and that Richard, his character has been restored. You know, he's a hero. He's a total hero. And everyone knows it. He stood up against the whores and the blow. He stood up against Clem Coward, and so the general and the command sergeant major and their criminal network on Fort Bliss, against Dallas Hart, Leilani Hart, the evils that they were doing, um, the emergency intake center, the for children, unaccounted for children. I mean, can you imagine all the different things? And we'll get specifics when these reports finally come to us now that we are wearing Richard's shoes. Um, but he died doing the right thing and standing up to this evil. But the corruption in the system with the FBI director, who, that's an untimely departure, and Judge Robert Shook, that's an untimely departure. And now General Counsel over Juarez in the Department of State, Eric Cohen, that's an untimely departure, unscheduled departure, right? And we have more. And there's more. Like Jay Paulin, had his little life there in El Paso, and that was an unscheduled departure. He hightailed it out. I guess he wanted to move to Florida. Um, but yeah, no, it's all getting uncovered, and they have been, um, let's just say, the institutional help has stopped protecting them now. Has stopped protecting them. And that's why it's coming out. And that's why we are receiving this kind of intelligence. And every day, more and more intelligence is coming out. Um, and we'll let everyone know that. But what do you need to know? You need to know that Richard is a whistleblower. You need to know that they retaliated against him. You need to know that those that retaliated against him are connected to the Walmart mass shooting organization. Total criminal. Totally criminal. Okay? You need to know that the retaliation wasn't working. And they were too quick to retaliate. I mean, it was clearly retaliation because they did not wait for the state judge to rule on Richard's case before they retaliated against him. And that's a violation also. So, just violation upon violation upon violation. And when he was, when they realized what they had done and that they would be easily held accountable for, just lose their positions because of what they did. Um, that was motive. That was motive to murder Richard. So not only the whistleblowing, but also because of the more crime that they added on to it, that got them, more people got into trouble. And the answer to them was, okay, you know, we'll just let this happen. We'll just silence him forever. That's what I believe happened. That's what all the evidence shows. And there is no doubt, none, 120%, 200%, 300, 1000% that Richard was murdered. There's no doubt. And that there was a lot of shenanigans going on in Fort Bliss to try to cover this up so they didn't have another Vanessa Guillen. So it was it's brutal murder, and we want accountability. And we want our son's remains. And so if you have any information, if you're out there and you have any information about the whereabouts of Richard's remains, and we know that his corpse was badly treated, dishonored. We understand that. We are prepared for that. And we want his remains anyway. We want his body. And so that we can honor him. And I think that is what everyone really needs to know. And I hope they shut down Fort Bliss. I do. Because right now, and you might say, oh no, don't shut down Fort Bliss. I don't know. Well, that's not for me to decide, so you don't have to worry about it, right? But that's how I feel right now as the mother of Richard Halliday, who was a whistleblower, and they let him down. The intelligence, the law enforcement community there let him down. And they let down not just Richard, but the El Paso people. Because they know their irregularities. If we know, they know. And I think that's why it was so, just an act of God that they gave us the videos of Richard, where it shows him so beautiful, so stellar soldier. It shows him a stellar soldier. Yes. All right, everyone. On this Rogation Sunday, I'll let you go. And, I just want to give thanks to you, because this has been work to come on here and to listen to this repeat over and over again, to share, to send your love, to send your prayers. Look at Suki, thank you so much for your prayers, and Anicia praying for you and your family. And we just want to say we're very grateful to God on this Rogation Sunday for you, for your hard work, and let's bear some fruit. We're going to, pray to God that He gives us a fruitful harvest in this accountability, in this justice for our son. So thank you so much. God bless, and I'll be back tomorrow, God willing. Bye-bye.